Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we would be looking at loops, how to deal with loops in our bash script. So basically in the ideal world or the world we live in, there are certain tasks or activities that we would want to do over and over again, right? And these tasks, there are certain things that govern the situation or how we do these tasks. So one way would be that we would like to perform a certain activity over and over again until a particular condition is met, right? And another one would be that we would want to perform some particular activity for a certain number of times. So you can choose to fetch water into a barrel until the barrel is full. That is, if you want to make the barrel full, or you can choose to fetch water into the barrel and you would just want to go like 5 times or 4 times. So basically, this is it in real life, and then we would want to implement the same thing in our bash script. So to do that, we will first have to create a script file, and I will call that loops. So you can choose to use the create script that we created in the previous video. So I attach the file, and then I'll call this loops.sh, and then I chmod it, chmod loops.sh, but then I want to give it the file permission 755, right? So you chmod 755, then the name of the file, loops.sh. Then you hit enter. Then we open here and we look for loops.sh. And then now I have this file here. Okay. So here, the next thing we do is we declare our shebang, right? /bin, that's the path to where the bash shell is, or the born again shell is. Now from here, I talk about loops. So there are various types of loops in bash or in bash scripting. The first one we are going to look at is the while loop. So this particular loop runs based on a condition. So while a certain condition is true, then it will do something, right? Do a certain command, and then when it's done running the command, you just say done, right? So unlike if statements that you do if fi at the end, this one you use the word done to notify that you are done with the loop, right? So basically this is it, but then this while loop will keep running this particular set of command until this condition is met, right? And as always, you can either use the square brackets and make sure you space them out, or you use the compound expansion, the double parenthesis, to do the conditions. So let's look at how we can do this. So if you would want your while loop to terminate, then you would want to set a counter or a timer, something that you would use to monitor that this condition would become true eventually, right? So let's say if I set a counter or a variable and I assign it to 1, then if I want to create a loop, let me use the compound expansion. If I say that when counter is less than, so because of this compound expansion, I can now use the less than or the greater than symbol that we are used to in the mathematics. So here is less than 10, right? It should do something for us. So we can say that it should do something. We can just echo counter. So let me see. I want to echo counter. I want to counter times 3. So times 3. So I'm doing something to the counter, and then after that I can just come here and say an increment counter, right? Else if I don't increase counter, this will just keep running till, because counter will always be 1 and this loop will keep running over and over again, right? So I can increment counter. So this is how to increment counter by 1. This is the same as counter equals counter plus 1. Okay, so now you have this. If I try running this loop, if I do ./loops.sh, I see this, right? So it runs 3. When counter is 1, it does 1 times 3, that's 3. Counter is 2, it does 2 times 3, 6, and all those ones to 27. Okay, so basically, counter is less than, that's 9. So if we had added equal to, they would have gotten to less than or equal to. Then hopefully we should have gotten to 30, as you can see here, right? So basically, this is how we use while loops. We mostly use this or to check a condition here. While this condition is true, then we execute a particular task here, right? Okay. So we are done with while loops. And then the next one we'll look at is the until, right? So just like the while loop, the until loop runs the same, but just that is the opposite. So until a certain condition is met, right, it's going to run a set of command, or it's going to do a set of command over and over again. And then when it's done running, then you just say done, right? So basically, this is it. So unlike the while loop, where this has to be true, right? This has to be true for this to run. The until command, this has to be false for it to run. So it will only stop running when this becomes true, right? So this is more or less like the opposite of this, but you can sort of in a way tune this to behave the same as this one here. So let's see how best you can do that. So here I would still assign my iterator, maybe I to be equal to 6, right? And then I say that, okay, until my counter, so this one I'm using the single square bracket, until my I is greater than 6, right? Do something for me. So bear in mind that you can use this, or you can use the compound expansion, that's a double parenthesis. So echo I for me. So now when I save this, bear in mind that you still have to increment I, else this loop will never terminate, right? So I'll bring my I plus plus here. So this will increment I for me. So now when I run this, it tells me that expression of, okay, integer expression expected. Okay, so this I am supposed to bring the dollar to call this variable. I'm sorry about that. So here, because we use the compound expansion, it's regarded the integer variable for this one. So if you don't use the double parentheses, then you would have to add the dollar here yourself. So now you see that it does that. So it just runs, it just echoes 6, right? Because right now it is 6. So the next one would be what? 7. So it just echoes 6 and then stops, right? But then let me do something more fun. This should be, let's say, 2. And let's see. So until 2 is greater than 6, it should run this command. So it should run this command. It should echo the values until I becomes greater than 6. Okay. So this is it. So when I was 2, it ran the command because I was not greater than 6. When I becomes 3 from this code, it still runs it because I is still less than 6. When I is 4, it does it until I becomes 6, where in the next round I become 7. So when I become 7, this is greater than 6. So the code wouldn't run, right? So you keep that in mind. So basically, this is how you do the until. You see that here, if you want the until and then the while loop to do the same work, then you have to use the opposite comparison operator. So here, while we use less than, right? Here we use greater than. So if you change this to less than, then obviously it's going to do the exact opposite of the while loop. Okay. So that'll be all for the until. The next loop we'll look at is the for loop. So the for loop. So for for loops, they are quite simple. What they do is that they perform a certain activity for each element in a given list, right? So for a certain variable in a list provided, or do something, do a set of command, and then when you are done with doing that set of command, then you just done, right? So to know that you are done with the loop. Okay. So basically this is it. You want to get some elements from a particular list. Either you want to do something to those elements in the list, or you want to do something for those elements in the list. So basically that's that. So let's see how we can make use of that. So one way is that if I assign a variable called names, right, to a certain list of names. So I can either do this and then put the names there. So Sedem space Paul space Bakar space Bodman space Phil space Albert space Abenquine. Okay. So now if these are, let's say, the names of the people I know, then if this is a list, right? So what bash does is that anytime you give it a space separated value, it regards it as a list, right? So I can loop through these names, right? And then bear in mind that this is a variable, so we bring our dollar here, don't forget that. And then this is going to be a new variable. So I can just say for name in this list, names, do something to these names for me. So echo, then I want to say echo name, hello name, how are you doing today? So basically this would take this list, and then for each item or each element or each name in this list, it will just echo out hello and then include the name here. How are you doing today? So let's see. It says that hello Sedem, how are you doing? Hello Paul, how are you doing? Hello Bakar, how are you doing? So it regards this as a list, right? We could also choose to give it a range of values if we don't want to do anything to. So bear in mind that this one, we are doing something to the elements in the list, right? We could have just done something else different, a different command altogether here without necessarily getting the values here. This code will still run per the number of items here. So if you have 4 items here, it will loop 4 times. If you have 6 items here, it will just loop 6 times and then it stops. Okay. So let me comment this one out and then talk about a different range. So you could also decide that for a certain range of values. So let's say that I have numbers, right? Or to repeat a for loop for a range of values, you can say for number in the range. To determine a range in bash script or bash, you use the curly braces, right? And then you give the beginning and then 2 dots and then the end, right? So if you want a list of 5 numbers beginning from 1 and then ending at 5, you can do this. So for now I just want to echo the number. Keep in mind that here we are declaring the variable. While we are using it in our code, we have to append a dollar, which means that we are calling the variable. So I save this and then I show that I am done with my loop, right? So here, when I rerun this code, I expect to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So this is one thing about the range, right? You could also decide that you want the range given in a certain steps, right? So for the range, you do, this is begin, the number you are beginning with, forward slash, dot, dot, the end number, then dot, dot, the step you want to take. So this is the prototype or the syntax of the range or determining the range in Bash, right? So let's say I want the range from 1 to 10, or let's say count down from 20, right, to probably 10, but then I want it to take it 5 at a time, right? 5 steps at a time. So you know, I expect that from 20, it should come to 15, it should go to 10, right? So now let's see. When I rerun this, I should get 20, 15, 10, right? Which means that it starts from 20, all right. It ends at 10, and then after every item, it skips 5 steps. So basically, this is it. You can either use this to generate numeric list and then you do something with them, or do something for them, or you pass a string, a list of names or a list of anything to it, and then you would do that. So that's how we make use of for loops in Bash scripts. So the last one we would look at is not really the last, but then for this particular video is the select, right? So select type of loop. It's not really a loop, but then this helps us to actually prepare a menu, right? So provide an option to the user to select something and then run something on that option. So basically, the syntax is quite simple. You select a certain variable, right, in a list, just like the one we did in the for loop. And then while the select or while the variable is inside the list, then you do a certain command to it. Command. Then when you are done executing a command, you just say done, right? So basically, this is it. You would do the select and then you run a certain command, and for any variable the person chooses, it executes that command for that person. So let's look at how that is. So let's say I have, so let's assume I'm creating a script to compute area of anything anybody wants. So I can just create a list of figures. So I can say figures should be equal to area of circle, area of circle. So let's say circle, square, or triangle, and then rectangle, and then maybe the last one should be quit or exit, anything, right? Then you want to provide a list, so I can say for figure in figures, right? So either this can be a structure or anything. I just choose the word figure. Bear in mind that this figures is, we are calling a variable, so you have to bring the dollar. Don't forget that. And then do something. So now I want to check if the figure is equal to quit, then it should just exit, right? So if figure, so let's say echo figure for now. Okay. Echo figure, dollar figure. All right. So basically this is it. Let's run this code and see how this would do. Okay. I think the error here, the reason is we spaced this. Okay, now this should work. Let's rerun this code and see. Now it's accessed that it has displayed the lists items here, and it has even numbered them for us to choose from, right? And it's expecting an answer or a number. So if I say I want number 1 and I hit enter, it echoes a cycle for me, right? If you say I want number 3, it echoes or does the same command and then 5. There's no number called 5, right? And then, so if I do 2, it echoes it. But then you can see that this will not stop because we didn't actually put any criteria for it to stop here, right? So you can kill it by doing Control C on your keyboard to kill that loop or stop that process. So basically, this is what we do. To do this, to implement this menu in a programming language like Python or C, or it's a whole lot of work. You have to do some nested while loops and then check some conditions. But this we can easily do with just the select loop in bash script. So this is a very interesting one if you want to create a numerous bash script that would make your user um, choose a menu option, then you can use this one too. But then one important thing, if you want to make this thing quit, is that we would talk about some key important terms. That's the break command and then the continue command, right? So basically, the break command would just exit or break out of the loop, right? So if I have, let's say, so if I want to check a certain condition, right? So if I say if do something, but then let's quickly, if what the if the figure, let me say this, if the figure is equal to the string quit, then it should what break, then break the loop, right? Else, so else it should echo this for me, else it should execute this for me. And then when it's done, I end my if by using fi here, right? Then I save this code. Okay. Now this time around, if I rerun this and then I choose number 4, it says, oops, sorry. Okay, so the problem here is the space. I told you bash is sensitive to space. So if the figure is quit, right, then it should break, right? So let's rerun this code. So we choose 1, hit enter, it breaks. Okay, I think there should be a space here. All right, so now if I rerun this code and I choose 2, I see triangle. If I choose 3, I see rectangle. If I choose 4, it quits or breaks out of the loop for me. So basically, this is how we break out of the loop. You can I also implement this break in any of the loops that you want. If at any point in time you want to stop running the process in a loop, then you can just break out of it. The continue would stop the loop and then continue running the other sections of the code, right? So you keep that in mind. So assuming I have something else here, echo done, right? Sorry, echo none here. I save this and I run this and I choose 3 and I choose 4, it echoes a down for me, right? But then if I decide that if I change this break to continue, let's see what happens. If I rerun this script and I choose option 4, you see that I have this continue command wouldn't work for the select because it's not it only works when you select an option, right? If we include a continue in any of these loops, it's supposed to skip that task and then go continue the other works for us. So I think we can just use a break statement here. But then in the continuation or in the course of this playlist or tutorial series, we would be making use of these things. So you would see their use cases. So if I should clear this, Control C, actually, Control C to quit. Then now we have this. So basically, this is how you apply loops in Bash scripts. We've been able to look at several types of loops: the while loops, the until loops, the for loop, and then the select loop. That will be all for this video. If you've learned something from this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share with your friends so you could also learn from this video as well. And we can't wait to see you in the next one, where we apply the knowledge of loops to continue with our create project, the create script that we were building. We would want to see how we can apply these loops to create it and then retrieve a lot of arguments.